Damn it. That was such a good speech. Okay, let's start over again. I'll tell you what I was saying. Mr. Spock, focus. I know, meowing. I'm so sorry. I'm an idiot. It just doesn't tell me I'm muted, and I'm just really mad about it. No. The reason for this surprise stream is that I have been I watched a little too much of Chuds trying to speak against what happened in Minneapolis and in support of ICE, and I couldn't take it anymore. Um, I couldn't, and I need to do something physically different, and I could do something really physically different, but I kind of felt like reading to people. So, so you're my whoever listens is my victim. No, I so and I didn't know what book to. I mean, I have plenty of books I could choose, so I just kind of chose one out of the blue. So it may not be the best choice, but I don't know. It's what we've got. And frankly, here's what I need. What I need for me right now is to read something that I need to see art. I need to be around art in this moment today. I will fight and I will definitely do all those things, but I really need to make sure that there's as much art around us as possible. So, for those that want to take a break from the news, could it be pin out? I'll do that someday. How about that, Mr. Spock? Um, so in lieu of watching the news and what's happening, although I'm happy that House Republicans joined with Democrats to limit war powers for this fucking tyrant and his merry band of miscreants. So anyway, so the book that I got this last summer because I wanted to, like a summer read, and I never read it. So, there's that. But I wanted to read this. It's called Welcome. I won't pronounce the words right, and I'm so sorry. Welcome to the Hyunam-Dong Bookshop. And it's by an author called Hwang Bo-Reum. Hwang Bo-Reum. And I've put the information on it. Yeah, watch college football. That's a great idea. So I'm just going to read a couple chapters because I want to. And hopefully, if you just want to sit back or put me in the background or not, I deeply appreciate it. Okay. All right. I know, muted. I'm muted. I wish some people were muted, but no. All right. Okay, it's chapter 1. I got to put my glasses on though, okay? Cuz I'm so sorry. Nerd out. I know, and the wind is really blowing here in Los Angeles. It's incredible. It's amazing. Okay. It hits my glasses hit my lashes. Now they need to sit the orange guy and JD down and read them the full Constitution. No, I think we just we I don't care. JD actually made a Nazi speech today and nobody noticed. He made a full-on Nazi speech today saying that guy has absolute immunity without an investigation, and that the mission that the people were on in Minneapolis was going door to door. And I don't know what else. I don't know what else to say. Tar and feather. It works for me. I mean, I don't know how to do that, but I'd probably burn myself. Anyway, so we're going to start with something that isn't have to do with this. It's I don't know what the story's about, but I heard very good things about it, so I bought it. Yeah, it was gross. Okay. All right. Here we go. So sit back and relax. I'm sitting back and relaxing. Oh my God. We're all doing that. Okay. Not you, the house. Yeah, totally. No, I'm down. I'm down with what you're putting up. I'm picking up what you're putting down, peace love. All right, here we go. Chapter 1. What makes a good bookshop? A man was loitering outside the bookshop. Stooping slightly, he shaded his eyes and peered through the window. He'd mistaken the opening time and come too early. As she walked towards the bookshop, Yongju recognized the man from behind. He was a regular customer who would drop by 2 or 3 evenings a week, always in a business suit. Hello. Startled, the man turned his head sharply. At the sight of Yongju, he quickly lowered his hands and straightened up, grinning sheepishly. I usually come in the evenings. First time I'm here at this time, he said. Yongju smiled at him. Well, not sure about of other things, but I'm definitely envious that you start work at lunchtime, he quipped. She laughed. I get that a lot. At the beeps of the passcode being punched on the keypad, the man looked away and turned back only at the click of the door. His face relaxed upon glimpsing the interior through the crack. Pushing the door wide open, she turned to him. It's going to smell a little of the night air and books. If you don't mind, you're welcome inside. The man stepped back, waving his palms. No, I'm good. I'd hate to bother you, especially outside business hours. I'll come by again. Oh my, isn't it hot today? She smiled at his considerate gesture and didn't insist further. Only June and it's already scorching, she said, the sun's rays prickling her arm. Youngju stood by the door and watched his retreating figure before turning into the bookshop. The moment she stepped inside, she relaxed, as if her body and senses basked in the comfort of returning to her workplace. In the past, she used to live by mantras like passion and willpower, as if by imprinting the words on her mind, they would somehow breathe meaning into her life. Then one day she realized it felt like she was driving herself into a corner, and she resolved never to let those words dictate her life again. Instead, she learned to listen to her body, her feelings, and be in happy places. She would ask herself these questions. Does this place make me feel positive? Can I be truly whole and uncompromisingly myself? Do I love and treasure myself here? For Yongju, the bookshop checked all the boxes. It was indeed a sweltering day, but before she could turn up the aircon, she needed to expel the stale air of yesterday and let fresh air in. When will I escape from the past, or is that a futile task? An unbreakable habit, the negativity reared its ugly head to drag her down, but she quickly pushed back with happier thoughts. Warm, humid air rushed in as she opened the windows one by one, fanning herself with a hand. She surveyed the bookshop. Questions swirled in her mind. If this were her first visit, would she have faith in the staff's recommendations? How does a bookshop earn trust? What makes a good bookshop? She imagined walking in for the first time. I'd probably go starry-eyed at the wall over there, she thought. The floor-to-ceiling shelves crammed with novels. No, wait. She caught herself in time. Not everyone, even if they're a book lover, enjoys fiction. It was something she learned only after starting Hyunam-Dong Bookshop. Those who didn't like the genre would probably give the wall a wide berth, she mused. The wall of novels in the bookshop was her way of coming full circle to fulfill her childhood dream. In elementary school, little Yongju pestered her dad to line all 4 walls in her room with storybooks. Each time, her dad would admonish her, saying that it wouldn't do for her to be so greedy, even when it came to books. She knew he wasn't angry and was just trying to break her habit of throwing tantrums to get what she wanted. But still, she would burst into tears at his stern demeanor, and later, tired from crying, she would curl up and fall asleep in his embrace. Shifting her weight away from the bookcase she'd been leaning against, Yongju walked to the windows and closed them one by one, starting as usual from the rightmost. With the last window firmly shut, she switched on the aircon and put on her favorite album, Keen's Hopes and Fears. The album was released back in 2004, but she had only discovered the British band last year. It was love at first listen. Since then, she put it on almost every day. The languid and dreamy voice filled the air as a new day at the Hyunam-Dong Bookshop began. Chapter 2. It's okay to stop crying. Oh, really? I know, I'm live all day. Yeah. Next to the counter, Yongju sat down at her desk and checked her inbox for new online orders. The next thing to do was run through the to-do list she'd prepared the night before. It was a habit from high school that carried well over into her adult life to write down the tasks she needed to do the following day, starting with the most important one. Years later, she still maintained the habit, albeit with a different purpose. Her younger self had wanted to rule her day with an iron fist. Now, Youngju soothed herself with their lists. Running through the tasks she needed to work on gave her confidence that it would be another day well spent. For the first few months after the bookshop's opening, she'd completely forgotten about lists and long-time habits. Each day passed by in a blur of struggles, as if time had slammed to a halt. Before she started the bookshop, it had been even worse, as if something was siphoning her soul away. Or maybe it was more accurate to say she wasn't not herself at all. There was only one thing on her mind. I must open a bookshop. Clinging to the thought, she forcibly drove everything else out of her mind. Luckily, she was the type to hold herself together if she had something to focus on. It was the anchor she needed. She plunged headlong into the process. She settled on a location, found a suitable property, busied herself with the fittings and furnishings, and bought the stock. In between everything, she even got herself certified as a barista. This was how Hyunam-Dong Bookshop, nestled in the residential neighborhood of the same name, came to be. In the beginning, she left the front door open and did nothing else. People walking by strolled in, drawn in by the seemingly gentle atmosphere. But in fact, the bookshop was like a wounded beast, wheezing feebly. The footfall soon trickled to a drop. It was the sight of Youngju sitting on a chair, her face so ashen, you'd wonder if she still had a drop of blood in her. Stepping into the bookshop was like an intrusion of her private space. She welcomed everyone with a smile, but none of them returned it. Minchol's mother, a good-looking lady with a flashy sense of fashion, was among the rare few who felt the sincerity in her smile. Who would come into a shop like this? Bookselling is also a business. Here, look at you slumped in that chair. Do you think money will fall from the sky? Twice a week, Minchol's mother attended drawing and Chinese classes at the neighborhood community center. After her classes, she made a point to stop into the bookshop to check on Youngju, looking like she has a screw loose, as if she belongs in the hospital instead. Who would dare come in? Minchol's mother exclaimed as she fished out a sparkly wallet from her equally flashy bag. And just one loose screw? Hey, that's not bad, Youngju exclaimed. Minchol's mother snorted with laughter. One iced Americano. I'm trying to be less perfect, more human. Guess that backfired, Youngjo deadpanned. Did someone tell you I love a good sense of humor? Youngjo pressed her lips into a thin line and wiggled her eyebrows as if saying, please draw your own conclusions, to which the older lady returned an amused scowl. Leaning against the bar table, she watched Youngju prepare her coffee. I've been through something similar too, she said quietly, half to herself. My body shut down and I was completely drained. After giving birth to Minchol, there was a period when I lived like a patient. Well, I was one. My body was in pain. But what I couldn't understand was why my mind was hurting too. Come to think of it, it was probably depression. Your coffee is ready. Youngju was about to put a lid on the cup when Minchol's mother waved her hand away. She grabbed a straw and settled down at a table while Youngju sat across from her. The worst thing was having to act like I was fine when I wasn't. I cried every night, feeling so sorry for myself for not being able to speak of my pain. I wonder if things would have turned out different if I had been like you, sitting there and letting go of everything else. The tears wouldn't stop, but when we feel like crying, we should let it all out. Forcing them back only makes wounds heal slower. At Youngju's silence, Minchol's mother paused and in one go drained the iced coffee. I envy you, she added, to have the space to do that. For the first few months, Youngju too had cried her heart out. She had let the tears flow, but if customers walked in on her crying, she would dab her eyes dry and greet them as if nothing had happened. Nobody said anything about her tear-stained face. Nobody asked why she cried. They simply assumed there was a reason. Youngju knew very well why she was crying. For a long time, perhaps her whole life, it would cast a shadow over her, making her cry. Nothing had changed. The reason, stuck in the past, remained as it was. But one day, Youngju realized that the tears had stopped. That moment, knowing that it was okay to stop crying. Felt as if a heavy rock was lifted from her heart. The days of listlessly sitting in her chair dwindled, as each morning felt a little more hopeful than the last. She didn't have enough energy yet to do more for the bookshop, but she started reading voraciously again. It was as if she was back in the days of reading from morning to night, giggling as she piled on more books to the stack, scrunching up her face in concentration as she leafed through the pages. She was back to being little Youngju, who turned a deaf ear to her mother's nagging as she read through mealtimes, back to basking in the joy of reading even as her eyes protested. If I can experience that happiness once more, perhaps I'll be able to start afresh, she thought. Up till middle school, Youngju had been an avid reader. Her parents, both but busy, left her alone reading in a corner at home. Once she devoured all the books in her collection, she turned to the library. She loved books. Novels were her favorite, bringing her on expeditions across lands and seas in the comfort of her home. When she had to pull herself back to reality, cutting a sweet dream short, her heart sank. But she needn't feel sad for long. She had only to open the book to dive right back into the adventures again. Reading in the empty bookshop brought back memories of her childhood, and she smiled. It occurred to her as she rubbed her dry eyes with her palms that she was past the age for reading marathons. She blinked several times before returning to the page. As if trying her best to mend a broken friendship from her childhood, she immersed herself into the books day and night, never leaving their side. It didn't take long for their treasured relationship to rekindle. The books welcomed her back with open arms without judging the person she'd become, and accepted her for who she is. Like a well-nourished person who ate 3 good meals a day, she grew stronger. One day, lifting her head from the pages, she found herself looking at the bookshop with clearer eyes and a sharper mind. I need to do better than this. Youngju sought out book recommendations and worked hard to fill the half-empty shelves. For each book she read, she penned down her thoughts on a memo paper, which she then wedged between the pages. The ones she hadn't read, she would put together opinions of literary critics, book reviewers, and readers she found online. When customers asked for an unfamiliar title, she also made sure to look it up. All this she didn't do for the profits. Her priority was to create a bookshop that looked and felt like one. Gradually, her efforts paid off. Residents nearby stopped throwing doubtful looks at the bookshop. The astute ones even noticed the changes. Each time they walked in, the bookshop seemed a little warmer, a little more inviting, casting a magnetic charm on passers-by. The biggest chain was Youngju. The bookshop lady who had flustered customers with her tear-stained face was no more. The bookshop began seeing visitors from further neighborhoods. Minchol's mother was delighted to see unfamiliar faces browsing the shelves. Did they mention how they got to know of the bookshop? Through our Instagram. The bookshop's on Instagram? Yes, you know, the handwritten notes in between the book's pages. I post the photos online too. Ah, and the people travel all the way here because of that? Well, not only that, I'm quite active on Instagram. I usually post a warm greeting during the morning rush hour or a book I'm reading. Sometimes I share small grumbles in life and another greeting during the evening commute. What's in the brains of the young ones is beyond me. Why travel so far because of this? Well, anyway, great. I thought you were just sitting around like a mannequin, but it looks like you're doing something. There wasn't much to do when she couldn't be bothered, but once she started to care, the work was never ending. From the time she punched in the passcode till she locked up for the day, her hands and feet never had an idle moment. When her limbs almost tied themselves into a knot, she bounced between the bookshop and the coffee orders piling up. She decided it was time to get some help. She put up hiring notice in the neighborhood for a barista. Min Jun walked in the very next day. The same day, after she had a sip of his coffee, she took down the notices. He started work the following day, around the first anniversary of the bookshop. Since then, another year had passed. Min Jun was set to arrive in 5 minutes. As usual, over a cup of his coffee, she would immerse herself in a novel until 1 o'clock when the bookshop was ready to welcome its customers. Chapter 3. What's the coffee of the day? On his way to the bookshop, Min-jun cast an envious glance at a man walking past him with a handheld fan. Calling the day hot was an understatement when his scalp tingled in the unrelenting heat. It hadn't been this insufferable last year, or had it? Thinking of the weather reminded him that it was this time a year ago when he'd come across the hiring notice. Barista wanted 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Remuneration to be discussed in person. Anyone who makes good coffee is welcome to apply. Back then, Minjun was desperate for a job. He didn't care what it was. Making coffee was fine. So was moving bulky items, cleaning toilets, flipping burgers, delivering parcels, or scanning barcodes. To him, they were all the same, as long as it paid. So he turned up at the bookshop. It was about 3 in the afternoon when he pushed open the door. As expected, the bookshop was empty, save for a lady who appeared to be the owner. She was sitting at one of the square tables in the cafe section of the shop, busy scribbling on a notepad the size of her palms. At the sound of the door, she looked up and gave him a little nod of greeting. Her warm smile seemed to say, "Feel free to browse, I won't bother you." When she returned to her work, Minjun thought he would take things slow and have a look around. The place was spacious, big in fact, for an independent bookshop, and the couple of chairs nestled among the bookshelves seemed to welcome customers to take their time to browse. Fully stocked shelves reaching all the way to the ceiling took up 1/3 of the wall to the right, while display racks aligned to the height of the shop windows flanked both sides of the entrance. It wasn't quite clear at first glance how the books were organized. He randomly pulled a book out from the nearest shelf. A piece of paper peeked out from the top. Opening the book, he took out the note and read it. Every one of us is like an island, alone and lonely. It's not a bad thing. Solitude sets us free, just as loneliness brings depth to our lives. In the novels I like, the characters are like isolated islands. In the novels I love, the characters used to be like isolated islands until their fates gradually intertwined. The kind of stories where you whisper, "You were here?" And a voice answers, "Yes, always." You think to yourself, "I was a little lonely, but because of you, I'm less alone." It's a wonderful feeling, and the book in your hands gives me a taste of that joy. Minjun slid the note back in and flipped to the title, The Elegance of the Hedgehog. He tried to imagine a prickly hedgehog ambling elegantly. A hedgehog? Solitude? Loneliness? Depth? He couldn't quite link them together. Solitude sets us free, just as loneliness brings depth to our lives. He had never given much thought, good or bad, to solitude or loneliness, and hence never tried to avoid either. In that sense, he was free, but did it add depth to his life? He wasn't sure. It looked like the owner was working on a similar note right now. Did she handwrite all these by herself? He had always thought a bookshop simply stocks and sells books, but it seemed like there was more to it. Ending his tour with a quick glance at the coffee machine, he approached the lady. "Excuse me." Youngju stood up. "May I help you?" "I saw the hiring notice for a barista." "Ah, yes, please have a seat." Youngju grinned at him as though he was the person she'd been waiting for the longest time. She walked over to her desk next to the counter and returned with 2 sheets of paper, which she placed on the table before taking the seat opposite. "Do you live nearby?" "Yes." "And you know how to make coffee?" "Yes, I've worked at several part-time at several cafes." "Are you able to handle that coffee machine over there?" He glanced in the direction she was pointing. "I guess so." "All right, would you make me some coffee?" "Now?" "2 cups. We'll chat over coffee." A while later, he returned with freshly made coffee. He kept his gaze fixed upon Youngju as she took a sip from hers. Even with the sudden request, he wasn't at all nervous. He had no reason to be when serving up decent coffee was pretty easy for him. But he tensed up when Youngju took her time to savor the dark liquid, slowly tipping the cup back for a second before looking up. "Why aren't you drinking? Drink up, it's good." "Okay." They chatted for the next 20 minutes, or rather, Youngju did most of the talking while he listened. Praising his coffee, Youngju asked if he was available immediately. "Yes," he replied. "As a barista, you'd focus on the coffee," she said, adding that her only request was for him to take over all the coffee-related tasks so that she could free up time and free up some bandwidth. When she followed with a question on whether he could also handle the selection and procurement of coffee beans, he wondered why such a nondescript task would warrant a separate mention. But out loud, he simply replied, "Yes." There's a roaster I work with. The boss is a good person. Got it. You and I will keep to our own roles, but if either of us gets too busy, the other person can chip in. Got it. To make it clear, it's not only me who can ask for help. If you're swamped, I'll help too. Got it. Young-ju pushed the documents to him. It was his contract. She handed him a pen to sign once he was agreeable to the terms and started to walk him through each clause. You'll be working 5 days a week. Rest days are Sundays and Mondays. Work hours are from 12:30 to 8:30 in the evening. Are you okay with this? Got it. The bookshop is open 6 days a week, so I only take a break on Sundays. I see. Got it. In the event that you have to work overtime, though I don't really see it happening, you'll be paid for the extra hours. Got it. Your hourly rate is 12,000 won. 12,000? You're working 5 days a week and putting in the hours equivalent to a full-time job. To be paid adequately, that's what you should get. Minjun couldn't help but look around the bookshop. Since the moment he'd stepped in, there had been no customers. He wondered if the boss realized it. She seemed to have no idea what the market rate was, as if it were her first time hiring for a casual position. The offhand way she was handling the process gave him pause. Even though he knew that he was overstepping boundaries, he couldn't resist telling her. The pay is usually lower. Young-ju glanced up with a knowing look before looking down at the contract. For sure, it's going to be tough with the expensive rent. But Minjun, it's fine. You don't have to worry about this. She looked up into his eyes. They were impassive but warm. She liked that. The kind of eyes that were hard to read at first sight, but something in there compelled her to slowly get to know him. She was also pleased that with how he didn't put up a facade nor try to get on her good side, but remained polite throughout their conversation. You need rest to work, and to rest, you need a certain level of income to live comfortably, she said. Minjin read his contract again. So this boss, in order to ensure work-life balance, deliberately made it an 8-hour, 5 days a week position, and for the person to be adequately compensated. She did the calculations and ended up with the hourly pay of 12,000 won. Was this the righteousness of a first-time employer, or was this the bookshop doing better than it looked? Minjun had questions, but he signed as he was told, followed by Young-ju. He stood up with his copy in his hand and nodded in greeting at Young-ju, who got up to see him to the door. By the way, she called out, I may only be able to keep this bookshop running for 2 years. That all right with you? In this time and age, who would think of staying in a casual job for more than 2 years? 6 months was his longest record. Truth be told, he wouldn't feel at all disappointed if she suddenly told him next month that he was no longer needed. But to her, he simply said, Got it. Now a year had passed since the day he said yes to the intriguing boss of Hyunam-Dong Bookshop. In that time, they followed their agreement faithfully. Young-ju spent her time experimenting with new ideas and observed how the customers took to them, while Minjun, in his steadfast way, handled the selection and procurement of the coffee beans and manned the coffee machine. True to her word, she didn't expect anything more from him beyond good coffee. When she caught him staring vacantly into space during a lull between customers, she'd chuckle. Shouldn't bosses give you a dirty look when they catch you lazing? At that thought, he couldn't help but laugh along too. Swiping away the beads of sweat gliding off his fringe, he pushed open the door and immediately welcomed by the cool breeze of the air conditioning. I'm here. Young-ju looked up from her book. Terribly hot out there, isn't it? Yeah, he said as he lifted the countertop and entered his workspace, which took up the other side of the counter. What's the coffee of the day? Make a guess later, he smiled as he washed and dried his hands. After placing a cup of fresh coffee next to her book, he returned to the cafe counter, but his gaze remained fixed on her. He watched her take a sip, a thoughtful expression on her face. It's kind of similar to the one yesterday, but the fruitiness in this one seems stronger. Delicious. He nodded, pleased that she could tell the difference. As usual, they chatted a little more before naturally gravitating back to their own work. Young-ju had a habit of reading before opening, while Minjun would prepare the beans for the day, and in his spare time he would help tidy up the bookshop. He knew that she would have cleaned up the night before, but it was an area where he could help. Chapter 4. Stories of People Who Walked Away. Before the bookshop opened for the day, Young-ju was usually absorbed in a novel. Immersing herself into the feelings of the characters provided a reprieve from her own. She grieved, suffered, and emerged stronger with them. as if sharing their experiences and emotions would, at the end of the book, allow her to understand anyone in the world. Often she read in search of something. However, she didn't always know exactly what she was looking for when she turned the first page. Sometimes she was several chapters in before she went, so this is what I'm looking for. There were also times when she clearly knew, right from the beginning, what she thought. The novels she'd been devouring for the past year were mostly the latter. She wanted stories of people who walked away from their lives, whether it was for a few days or forever. Let's turn that off. A myriad reasons and backstories, but they had one thing in common. Their lives changed from then on. Back then, she was told, "I don't understand you." Sometimes it was an accusation. "Why do you only think of yourself?" Just when Yangju thought she was starting to forget about those biting words, the voices would return as a hallucination to haunt her. Just when the memories were fading into the distance, they would surge and inundate her to the next moment. Each time, she cracked a little deeper. Dreading a complete breakdown, she decided to bury herself in the stories of people who'd left their old lives behind. She read ravenously, as if on a mission across the world to collect them all. Somewhere within her was an empty vessel. She poured into it, past its brim, their stories, reasons, emotions, and the courage they had to summon. She wanted to know all about their lives thereafter, their thoughts over time, their joy, suffering, happiness, and sadness in life. When the going got tough, she would retreat into herself, curling up next to them as she listened to their stories and sought comfort in their words and experiences. She drowned the biting criticism. "I don't understand you. Why do you only think of yourself?" with their voices. They gave her strength, and finally she mustered the courage to tell herself, "That was my only option back then." For the past few days, Yangju had been absorbed in Monica Maron's Animal Triste, the story of a woman who, in the most complete sense of the word, leaves her husband and daughter. She has fallen in love with another man, but because nothing can be more important in life than true love, because the path ahead, the one and only, is so obvious, she feels no remorse. When the man later walks out of her life, she stops making new memories for fear of erasing him and their shared time. She disengages completely from the world, living out the remainder of her life in solitude for decades, until the ripe old age of 90 or 100. A good novel to Yangju was one that would bring her to places beyond her expectations. In this book, her focus had initially been on the woman walking away, but later she realized love was what made everything possible. She mulled over how the woman starts to wear the glasses of the man that the man had left behind, even though it ruins her sight eventually, her final desperate attempt to be close to him. How does one love so unconditionally? Yangju wondered. To live decades in isolation, cherishing a love affair 40 or 50 years past. Did she not have regrets? What made her so certain he was the only love of her life? Yangju didn't understand the woman, but for having lived so fiercely and intensely, she admired her. Tearing her eyes from the pages, she ruminated on the woman's words. Of all life has to offer, only love is indispensable. Was love the most important thing in life? Did nothing else compare? Love is great, she thought, but indispensable? No, she didn't agree. Just like how some thrive on love, it's also possible to live without it. I'm doing quite well without love, she thought. While she was lost in her thoughts, Minjin was wiping the coffee cups dry with a tea towel. When the alarm rang at 1 o'clock, he returned the cloth to its position and walked to the door. The thud of the open sign being turned shook her out of her reverie. As he walked back to the counter, she felt the urge to ask his opinion on love, but she thought better of it. She could already imagine his response. He would pause to think and answer, "Well?" She wished she knew what was in his head at the moment of hesitation, but Minjin was never one to share his thoughts readily. Looking at him pick up the same cup again, Yangju thought she made the right decision not to ask. In any case, there was only one correct answer, the one she had in mind right now. Isn't that what life is about? Forging forward with the answer you have, stumbling along the way and picking yourself up? only to one day realize that the answer you've held on to for so long is not the right one? When that happens, it's time to look for the next answer. That's how ordinary folks like herself live. Over our lifespan, the right answer will keep changing. He was still drying the cups when she called out, Minjun, may today be a good one too. Please recommend me a good book. Before running the bookshop, Yangju had never considered whether she was suitable to be a bookseller. She thought rather naively that anyone who loves books could be one. It was only when she started her own bookshop that she realized she had a serious shortcoming. She fumbled questions such as, which book is good and what's an interesting book? Once she made a complete fool of herself when a man in his late 40s sought her recommendation for a book. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger is really interesting, she enthused. Have you read it? The man hung his head. No, I haven't. I've read it more than 5 times, I believe. It isn't that interesting. And not in a generic sense. You know how some books make you throw your head back in laughter or dizzy with anticipation? This book isn't interesting in that sort of way. I mean, it's beyond the generic interesting. There's no climax or central plot stitching the book together. The entire story follows a child's thoughts and takes place over the span of a few days. That said, I still find the book interesting, she finished pathetically. What does the child think about? The man looked so serious, Yangju felt a stab of nerves as she tried to explain. It's about how a child sees the world, his thoughts about schools, teachers, friends, parents. The man furrowed his brows. Will I also like this book? She was stumped. Will he find it interesting? Why, of all books, did I recommend this? It must have shown on her face, for the man simply thanked her and walked away. Later, he approached the counter and bought Insights of Eurasia. So that was what he liked. Historical nonfiction. Something he said before leaving the shop that day had remained on her mind ever since. I'm sorry I asked a difficult question when everyone has their own preferences. A customer saying I'm sorry to a bookseller for seeking a recommendation when she should have been the one to apologize for incompetence. It was an important lesson learned, never to blindly recommend her own favorites to the customer. She wanted to do better, but how? In her spare moments at work, she brooded over it and came up with the following. Number 1, be objective. Avoid personal biases. Instead of books I like, recommend books which the customers may enjoy. Number 2, ask questions. Don't rush them into a recommendation. Ask the following questions. What is a book you enjoyed reading recently? Which book left a deep impression on you? What genres do you like? What is on your mind recently? Who are your favorite authors? Despite developing a strategy, she still blanked occasionally at such requests. Is there a book that'll unclog a smothered heart? Minchol's mother asked as she ordered an iced Americano, adding that she'd skipped her classes because she wasn't in the mood for them. A book to unclog a smothered heart. The request was too abstract, but none of her prepared questions seemed at all appropriate. Desperate not to drag out the silence, she cast around for something to ask and landed on the innocuous, "Something's bothering you?" It's been like this for the past few days, as if I'm stuffed with injeolomi rice cakes, stuck all the way up to my throat. What happened? At Yongju's question, she suddenly stiffened, her eyelids trembling. She quickly gulped down the half-iced Americano, but it didn't bring light back to her eyes. It's Minchol. A family issue. Somehow, running a bookshop made Yongju privy to the most private matters of her customers. She'd read somewhere that authors often get people opening up to them, as if being a wordsmith somehow meant that they would understand things that even the closest of friends couldn't. Apparently, people thought the same of booksellers, as if owning a bookshop was an accreditation of exceptional emotional intelligence. Something happened to him? She asked. She had seen the lanky high schooler on a few occasions. He'd inherited his mother's pale face, and when he smiled, he looked pure and bright. Minchol, he told me he sees no meaning in life. No meaning in life, Yangju echoed. Yeah, why? I have no idea. I don't think he really meant it, but since then, I haven't been able to focus on anything. My heart aches whenever I think of what he said. According to his mother, Minchol said he had zero interest in anything, studying, games, hanging out with friends. Well, it wasn't like he completely stopped doing any of these. He still studied when exams were around the corner, played games when he was bored, and met his friends occasionally. He was indifferent to them all. And on most days, he would return home straight after school, browse the internet on his bed, and drift off to sleep. At the age of 18, he was sick of life. Is there no book that will help me? Minchol's mother poked her straw between the ice cubes and sucked up the last drops of coffee. For Minchol, Youngju could draw up a reading list. There were plenty of stories about fatigue or being lost in one's own world. What, though, could she suggest to a mother whose child was going through a teenage life crisis? No matter how hard she thought, she couldn't come up with anything suitable. She couldn't recall any novels about a mother and son, nor had she read a single parenting book. She was filled with dread, not because she couldn't find a suitable book, but because it suddenly hit her that she was the limiting factor of the bookshop, the cause of its narrow worldview. Hyunam-Dong Bookshop was tailored to her preferences as a reader, her interests, and her reading repertoire. How could such a place be helpful to others? She decided to be honest. I can't think of any book that'll help. Don't worry about it. Actually, wait. There's a novel I just thought of. Amy and Isabel. It's about a mother and daughter living under the same roof who hate each other as much as they love each other. Being a parent and child doesn't mean they'll always understand and accommodate each other. Reading it made me think that, in some sense, even parents and their children should lead their own separate lives eventually. This sounds interesting, said Minchol's mother. I'll get it. She declined Yongju's offer to lend her the book first to see how she'd take it. As Yongju watched her leave with the book in hand, she thought about the power books held. Is there a book that'll unclog a smothered heart? Will a book have that much power? 2 weeks later, Minchol's mother dropped by again. I have to run, but I wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed the book. It reminded me of my own mother. We fought a lot too, although not as much as Amy and Isabel. She paused as if her thoughts had drifted away, and when she spoke again, her eyes were slightly red. That last scene where the mother kept calling out for her daughter. I bawled, thinking about how there'll come a time when I'll miss my child so much I can't hold him in my arms forever and a day. I'll have to learn to let him fly, to let him live his own life. Thank you so much, Youngju. Please recommend me more good books again. All right, gotta run. While it wasn't quite the story she was looking for, Minchol's mother had enjoyed what Youngju somewhat hesitantly recommended. The heaviness in her heart remained, but the book brought back memories of her mother and nudged her to reflect on how to handle her relationship with her son. Could it count as a good recommendation? Despite falling short of expectations, could a book, if enjoyed, be considered a good read? Is a good book always a good read? Her recommendations might not be what the customers hoped for, but if they said it's still good, perhaps she had done a good job. Of course, suggesting a novel about a high school student, even if it's one of the best literary novels with social commentary, to a middle-aged, I don't know what ajushi is, it's a Korean word, forgive me, who enjoyed nonfiction history titles could still be a no-go. But who knows, one day he might feel like reading a novel. Or maybe when he wanted to better understand his children, he might recall being recommended such a book and seek it out. If he did, he might even enjoy it. As with everything in life, reading is about the right timing. That said, what counts as a good book? For the regular person, it's perhaps a book they enjoyed. But as a bookseller, Youngju needed to think beyond that. She tried coming up with a definition. Books about life. Not something generic, but a deep and raw dive into life. Recalling Minchol's mother's red-rimmed eyes, she tried to elaborate further. Books by authors who understand life. Those who write about family, mother and child, about themselves, about the human condition. When authors delve deep into their understanding of life to touch the hearts of readers, helping them to navigate life, isn't that what a good book should be? I'm going to stop there. But I'm going to keep reading this to you because I think we need some breaks once in a while. I don't know about you. Maybe it's just me. I need a break once in a while. I need a break from the news. And are you power toking? I'm going to be power toking in about a minute. Maybe. I'm sure it'll be very juicy. I don't think it's a juicy novel. I think it's a beautiful kind of contemplative. This is a more contemplative novel than others. So, oh, Josh, I've been practicing a Kurt Weill symphony today as I'm listening to shows. That's brilliant. We need breaks. I'm sorry, I need a break. I needed a break. I needed to force myself off of watching stupid people talk about really important things and be stupid about them. I had to stop. And I just wanted to hang out with you guys. Anyway, I'm going to smoke some weed. And you know what? If nothing else, I'm on here because maybe then people aren't watching those other assholes. Oh, great. Oh, really? Okay, hold on. Let me find that. No. Yeah, I just wanted to go live because I was going to go live anyway just to kind of like hang out. And I thought, I want to read. Let me see what's going on. Yeah. Oh. Okay, that's not working. Hold on. It was very relaxing. I'm so glad. Oh, I hope you guys, that'd be nice if you took a nap while I was reading. Maybe that's what I need to do. Nap time reading. Of course. I want to do more of that. We used to do this. We used to read more. Oh, Carrie, you love. Oh, my goodness. Look at that. I don't know any of those people, but welcome. Blind hog searching for acorn? What is that? I don't even know what that means. Oh, hi, babe. Oh, been in and out during the day. Work, Yeah, I know. You've got some big things on your plate. Thank you so much, Carrie. What a love. Thank you, darling. I know. I'm your group nap leader. That's what I should call this. Nap time. Nap time with Lolo. Hang, not hand. Okay, got it. Yeah, I want you guys. I want to just hang out. I want to hang out. All right, let's see what's going on in Portland. Yikes, Mikes. Why? Okay, it's not coming up on mine, but that doesn't mean anything.